It's hard to believe that we're coming down to the end of LDI and the transition into Holy Week, but here we are. By way of introducing tonight's exercise, I want to read a portion of Scripture. It's from the book of Joshua, chapter 4. I'll start in verse 4. And the scene is the Israelites. They've gone through their wandering in the desert, and they're ready now to finally enter into the promised land. And so here are some instructions given to them. So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and said to them, "Go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder according to the number of the tribes of Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, 'What do these stones mean?' tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever." So the Israelites did as Joshua commanded them. They took 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, as the Lord had told Joshua. And they carried them over with them to their camp, where they put them down. Joshua set up the 12 stones that had been in the middle of the Jordan at the spot where the priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant had stood, and they are there to this day. I think about what the Israelites must have experienced as they had entered into the Promised Land and heard these stories told over the generations, and how the stones were there as a reminder, perhaps a family on travel, or perhaps to go somewhere to sell some grain, and they passed by these stones as a remembrance that God had in fact been faithful to them. It is a good reminder to us that we need moments like this. We need our memorial stones, remembrances to help us reconnect with the ways that God has worked in our lives, to remember that in times of tremendous difficulty, we are not abandoned. God knows us, our situation, and He can deliver. He has delivered. He has saved us. We're entering into the season of church life where this is most profoundly brought to our attention, that Jesus really did come into the world to seek and save sinners like us. And He really did rise again from the dead to declare victory over a fallen, broken world. And that He really will make all things new. And we as God's people are experiencing the first fruits of that. But honestly, that's a really easy thing for us to forget. And so we're going to have an exercise not only to help you remember what God has been teaching you over the course of these last several weeks, but as a lesson to your future self. So you'll see on your table that there are these sheets of paper and envelopes. And if you've been involved with LDI in the past, you kind of maybe have a recollection of what we do with these things. What I'm going to invite you to do is during the moment of personal reflection, that you give each other some space, metaphorically speaking, and to write down on this sheet of paper a few of the lessons, maybe 2, 3 of the highlight lessons that you want to take away from LDI. And then to also write down a verse. It could be a whole reference to a whole passage, like the Colossians 3 passage or the Romans 12 passage. It could have been maybe a particular verse from those passages, or it could have been a devotional exercise. It actually, frankly, may have been a verse that we didn't cover in LDI, but over the course of these weeks, it was something that captured your attention. And what I'd like for you to do is not only to write down a couple of these lessons, but to write that verse down, or at least a reference to it. And then to write out how you would like that verse to have been prayed into your life. We often talk about praying scripturally, praying the scriptures into our lives and using the scriptures to inform the way we pray. And what we're going to do is, this is our version of these memorial stones. You're going to write this down, and then on the envelope, you're going to write your own address. And then 2 months from now, seal it up, and then 2 months from now, we're going to mail it to you. This is a message to your future self, as a reminder of, gosh, that was right. I was supposed to work on my relationship with that colleague. Yeah, I better get back on that. Or You know what? I really never quite resolved my issues with my folks. I need to get back to praying about that, or whatever it may be. So you're going to write this stuff out. No one is going to get to. Someone asked in the morning, are the staff going to read through all these? Because we want to know how honest that we need to be here. We won't read for this. What you're going to do is you're going to write this stuff out, and then the bulk of the discussion is just going to be sharing lessons. What were the main lessons? And so you can use this as a reference to jog your memory of what you want to share. But then we're going to ask you by the end of the evening to fold it up, put it in an envelope, seal it. We're going to collect it, and then we'll mail it to you as your memorial delivered to you of what God would have you remember and continue to apply from LDI. I think that's it. All right. Oh yeah. So on your table, there's a little green sheet. Someone from the morning wrote this. I don't know if this has really been a big part of the life of our church. There have been over 370 some folks involved, both from the morning service and evening service and the choir, because they can't attend it during the normal times. They went off and formed their own group at an odd time, and there are a couple of small groups that have also. It's really been an amazing thing to join together as a whole church involved in this discipleship institute. So it's really special. So what you'll see is an offering from this older gentleman in our morning worship service, who emailed this to me and Tony about how enthusiastic he was and grateful for the lessons that he's learned. And he put it in this poem form and wanted to share it with us. So there you have it as inspiration for, don't worry if you can't wax poetic in this, that's fine, but inspiration for the kind of reflection that we hope we all are entering into. So, all right, I'll give you some time of silent reflection to write down your sheets.